All right, everybody, it's Wilsey from South Florida Insider. We have speech over here from Arrested Development. Thanks for coming on this evening's speech. We really appreciate it.
It's all good, man. It's my pleasure.
All right. So you got a new album out. It's called Don't Forget Your Demons. I listened to it a couple times. I really like what I hear. Did you do this during the COVID pandemic or before and after? I know it just came out about a month ago. How did that process go for you?
Yeah, it's called Don't Fight Your Demons. Don't Fight Your Demons. Um, yeah, it came out September 25th. And it was definitely a COVID record. It's like just being locked down, no touring, um, no traveling, not even being able to, hook up with friends and family. It really produced a good environment for creating this record. I connected with a producer out of London named Configure, and he had done a record that I really love called Forward Future by him and Jahi. And so I reached out to him, or he reached out to me, one or the other, and basically we connected and started passing tracks back and forth to each other and was like, yo, why don't we try a track together? And he did a track, I started rhyming to it, and that became the beginning of what Don't Fight Your Demons ended up being, between him producing on it, a brother named Chris Acosta, myself, and a brother named Mark X, that's the album producers right there pretty much.
Excellent. Did you gain any tips or anything new how you're going to move forward when you produce any new music from this experience, or would you rather do it the old way, how musicians did it before the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything like that?
Well, I mean, the whole reality of creating online, because me and Configure, we've never met in person. So we tend to do this online, passing back and forth of ideas, tracks, versions of the songs that we're doing. And I've been doing that for a lot of years, but I also used to do like 2-inch reels, splicing tape, all analog outboard gear, Neve board, so I've done different stages of producing over the years. So I definitely foresee doing more of this, like the whole passing things back and forth, and basically what COVID-19 even made even more possible because people aren't able to travel. So yeah, I definitely see doing more of this. It works out, in certain ways. It has its pros and cons. The cons is that, you don't have that same teamwork of people right around you, ideas popping off in real time. But the pros is that you get to work with people that you probably weren't going to be able to work with just because of budget constraints of traveling to their studio or vice versa. So it has pros and cons to it.
It shortens the gaps and saves time and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself doing any kind of tours here in the near future when they start opening things up and making stuff available? There's a lot of artists right now that are doing the drive-in tours and the virtual shows and everything like that. Do you see yourself looking forward to getting into any of those?
Yeah, like we had tours set up in Dubai, Canada, Europe this year, and in the United States this year. And so all of that got postponed, and then it got canceled because of all of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are planning to do some tours even again now in 2021, but we'll see how this pandemic pans out. My hope is that the new leadership in America will be able to help us to get past this quicker. And then my other thing is that the virtual shows, I am totally open to doing something like that. And I've been trying to sort of formulate how we could do it because some of our band is in other cities. And, so it's like just trying to work all of that stuff out. How do we rehearse? Do we do, like testing and then a 14-day quarantine and then rehearse and stay together, or, just trying to figure out how to put it all together.
A lot of moving parts going on
Yeah, a
there.
lot of moving parts to make that happen.
Yes, it is. You got to get creative with it. Um, so you've been doing this since the '90s, maybe even before then. How do you see how has the industry changed in your view between hip hop artists in the '90s and hip hop artists of today?
It's a huge change. There's a lot of them. So I mean, I can probably mention three right off the bat. We used to have a deep respect for those that came before us, not just hip hop artists that came before us, but musicians that came before us. So like when we crate dig, we dig in the crates for samples, and we had a huge respect for jazz artists and funk artists and soul artists. And so what I've tended to recognize with a lot of the newer artists is they don't even know who existed prior to maybe 2000 or maybe 1997 or 6. Somewhere in there, they sort of don't really know anything else that happened prior to that, including in hip hop. So another thing that I think has changed is obviously rap now can make a lot more money because of the roads paved over the years. The deals can be a lot sweeter. The ownership of the masters could be a lot more likely. The reach to fans is a lot easier and different. So that's another thing. And then I think the way records are sold is totally different. I mean, today, records really aren't being sold too much, but they count a certain amount of streams for a sale. I mean, the whole rules of how the industry calculates what's a gold record, what's a platinum record, has all changed. So there's a lot of differences in the industry, but those are three that I could come up with right off the top of my head.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, with all the you're a kind of you rap about life and politics and just the struggle and stuff like that. And that's definitely been seen in your music now, and as it was in your earlier records. How do you see the newer guys doing that, and how would you almost grade, and what's your opinion on how they're doing with bringing different topics and bringing different social issues to light for the kids and the people that are listening to them now?
I think, obviously it depends on each artist, but I think in general, there needs to be a lot more balance of that, because we get a lot of sort of party, drugs, material things, women, maybe some violence of some sort, coming after somebody for this, that, and the third or whatever. But we're not getting a lot of conscious stuff. So you have a few exceptions, maybe a Kendrick Lamar or, whatever, but it doesn't seem to be nearly the scope of things that it was in the 90s and it was in the 80s. So I think that there needs to be a lot more diversity of subject matter and artistry too. Like right now, a lot of the artists want to sound similar to each other so that they can blend into the pop culture narrative and sort of have a chance to get on radio and all of that. But I think, basically, I think if artists were allowed to be themselves more, then that would bring about more conscious music and music about the struggle and various issues that are going on in each artist's life. So then that way there's a wide variety instead of just, those topics I mentioned earlier.
Definitely, definitely. Do you see that issue as, is that a function of the artists themselves, or is that a function of the artist companies, or is that a function of the people that are listening and buying? What do you think has the bigger influence on what's getting put out in the mainstream and what's kind of breaking through past the mainstream that people are actually listening to?
Yeah, I think it's primarily the corporate structures that are dictating what artists are doing. And it's because the mind frame of the hip hop artist has changed to some extent. Like in the years gone by, it was more about the art of hip hop and definitely not trying to make deals with the devil in a sense, whereas the corporations were the devil. Nowadays, it's flipped to where it's the whole idea is to try to get as much money as possible. So if you make a deal with corporations, if have a corporate sponsor on, rocking with you, that's like that's like the ideal situation to a lot of artists. So today, so things have changed very, very drastically, and therefore you're not going to do stuff that you feel is going to mess up your money bag with the corporations. You know what I mean? And the corporations, to be honest, are usually very white supremacist and racist in their objectives. So when it comes to black music, they really want that black music to be violent or materialistic or strip clubs, degrading women, drugs. They want that music. They promote that. They promote those artists. But then artists that talk about deeper things, by and large, they don't promote so much. And, that's a corporate way of looking at black life. And it's very narrowing to what artists are wanting to put out, because they feel like it's not going to get any love if they talk about something other than those topics.
What do you think are some ideas that you and some other artists yourself can do to possibly change what exposure is getting out there? Maybe making your own platform or doing something to kind of fight against the power that's almost just limiting what kind of hopeful and positive music that's out there. Because I know I turn on the radio and I hear everything that you were just talking about, and it's kind of, I know for me, I grew up in the 90s and I listened to a lot of your stuff and similar stuff, and it was about the hope and stuff like that, and I don't hear that anymore, and that's kind of pushing a lot of people away from the industry, especially people that don't have time to dig through the realms of the internet and
Exactly.
find the stuff out there that's giving positivity and hope to the listeners.
Yeah, I think we have way more control than we think we do. So basically all we have to do is start to support each other and support the hip hop that is great based on the merits of how great it is, instead of based on how many records it's going to sell. Because when you start marking hip hop based on how many records it sells, you're automatically giving it or handing it over to those distribution companies that dictate how many people can get ears on it. You're basically handing it over to the algorithms of these major platforms. But if it's based on just what we all think is hot, then we have to support it. DJs have to actually become active in changing the culture instead of just playing what's hot. They got to become active in changing the culture. And so does the fans. The fans have to start sharing stuff that they think is hot. I do see that happening with the younger generations, and I love it. I'm starting to see it happening with the older generations, like my generation. I'm 52, so I've been around, and I see some of the older people who are thoroughly frustrated with a lot of what's being played on mainstream rap radio starting to share stuff that they think is hot. I think we all need to do that a lot more and start sharing music with each other. And that way we can create what becomes mainstream in the future because of so much groundswell and people really talking about it.
Sounds awesome to me. Well, Speechman, I appreciate you coming on. Do you have any message you want to give out to your fans or anybody listening going forward, whether it be with the world, politics, you want to talk about your new album or anything you might have in the future going on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like to, shout out, first of all, Arrested Development, my crew. I want to shout out my team, Vagabond Productions, which is my label, my staff. But I also want to shout a few things that I'm working on that I think is just great for everybody to peep out. Don't Fight Your Demons is Arrested Development's brand new album. Um, it's being lauded as like our best record ever, or at least the best since our first debut back in the 90s. And that's cool. Then I got a documentary where I went into a jail to work with the inmates, which I call residents, on music. And I documented this thing, and it's called 16 Bars. It just got put on Amazon Prime. So it's on Amazon Prime and YouTube. It's a full-length documentary called 16 Bars. It's really, really great, getting great reviews. We've won a number of awards with it, me and my team. So that, I'd like people to see that. And then Arrested Development, we released a standalone single called Onya, Onyya, and that just came out about a week ago tops. And we really wanted it to reflect what's going on around the elections in America, so that's cool. I also have a mini documentary that I did called Nigga Factory that is on YouTube. It's for free, and it's on my page. It's called The Nigga Factory. It's really, really exposing this 400-year marketing campaign of painting Black people as criminals, lazy, violent, things of this nature. So, you know, that's a really, really educating and great piece of work. I also have a solo project that I did called Expansion. It's really, really great, very musical, a lot of live instruments mixed with programmed instruments. Really great project I'm proud of. So all of those things people can see and peep out on my website, brotherspeech.com.
All right, excellent. Thanks for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it. And yeah, man, it's been great. Keep doing what you're doing, spreading the positivity, and got a lot going on. And thanks a lot.
No doubt, man. I appreciate y'all, man. Thanks for the love.
Absolutely.